So, hi Sharon, hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to this amazing talk that we're going to hear from Sharon today. It's on Ascension and the movement from 3D world to 5D world. Can you imagine what it's going to be like? We know that we've been in lockdown, but it's been for a purpose, for us to regenerate and move on to this amazing new world. So we have Sharon today. Sharon is an author, she's a speaker, she's written so many books. So I don't really know how many she's written, but quite a few. And so she's going to talk to us, take us through Ascension. What is Ascension? What are the symptoms? What are we meant to feel? And when we do get there, what is it going to be like? I think it's going to be an amazing talk. So I don't really know much about Ascension myself. I know I hear about it, I see it on Facebook, but I don't actually know. But Sharon channels information from higher beings. So, well, let's hear from you, Sharon, and tell us.
Hello. You. Yeah, I'll just say a little bit about myself. My name is Sharon Milne Barbour. And as you just said, I am a channeler. I am a light spiritual reader, which means I connect with high beings to bring guidance to people. I'm a mentor, a teacher, and a mother and a nana. There you go, my human side. I do write. I've been writing for 7 years, and I'm just my 10th book is just about to release. And I'll just quickly show you. It's called The Celestial Guardians of Earth. And this book is about Ascension, and it's about the way the celestial guardians are working with us at this time. So I will go back to my last book I wrote, which is called New Earth, The Light Over the Horizon, which talks about Earth over millions of years and the beings that have come to Earth and visited us. It then takes us to this awakening period, which started officially in the eyes of our beautiful guardians that work with us in 2020. Now, the beings that have channeled this information to me are the Pleiadians. That's the last 2 books I've just written. And I work with a Pleiadian master called Ariel. If you want to know more about what they channel, I've got a YouTube channel, One Spiritual Movement, which you can connect to, and there's lots of videos on there about that. So Ariel has come to me in the last 2 years, and I sit in trance and she communicates through trance, and she is the guiding architect of my books, is the way she likes to be called. And Ascension is a very key part of our journey at the moment. So if I take you back to the Second World War on Earth, I won't go into the history prior to that of how beings have worked with us, because we'd have to be here for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But my Celestial Guardian book does tell you about the history. Now, through many centuries, we have been working with many ascension beings, a lot of humanity, and you think there's over 7 billion of us on this planet. Not many of us are aware of this. But they have been a big part and orchestrated Earth's ascension through many, many millennia. Unfortunately, because we are in a 3D reality and we're quite often left to our own devices to try and see how humans can work and try and ascend on their own, it doesn't always work. And by the Second World War, especially when we developed the atom bomb, the hydrogen bomb, and we used it twice in Japan, that was a massive, massive wave out into the universe that they really weren't helping humanity with the way they were working with us. So I want to just take you to soul base there, to the soul. Every life in the universe that has intelligence to advance itself is an ascension being. So we all are ascension beings. So we can talk about ascension on Earth, but it's a huge picture. We start with the soul base. Now, for many years, Earth humans did not have a soul, and it was over 300,000. Yeah, it was over 300,000 years ago where they invited that into that humanity had been changed for various reasons over many centuries. I'm talking millions of years here. And there was a point where they connected the incarnation program of the universe to the Earth species. Again, if you want to read my book on Atlantis and New Earth, that would tell you a lot about that, because I can't give you all that information in this today, because it's just so much. There's just so much information. I'm just trying to break it down for you. So to understand the soul base was brought to humanity for ascension beings like Pleiadians or Taurians, many other, the Lemurians, to be able to experience a 3D reality where they were trying to create a human race that could actually eventually ascend from 3D reality to 5D reality with the support of this soul base. But they were monitoring us. They were monitoring what they call them experiments. They're very open about it, experiments. And Atlantis was the first phase of Atlantis through to the 5th experiment was a massive experiment, stage 4 this, and that's when the incarnation process actually came in. I think it was in the 3rd Atlantis experiment, which you can read about in my Atlantis book. So the soul base was really and the soul connects with a higher self being, which can be a light being of consciousness or a physical being like you and me, but are living in the high ascended way of understanding. So it's a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th dimensions. They did use the soul connection to try and work with the individual being, but it was more of a monitoring, gathering information, taking it back to what they call for our understanding a universal knowledge pot. And all that was collated from all those thousands of years of incarnation was used to help enhance humanity. The missions the individual higher self set for their mission on Earth, what to learn, was used from that universal source. And this went on for a very long time until they hit the Second World War. And then they stopped and just went, right, hands up. Why are we working with these humans? Why have we done what we've done in the last 300, 400,000 years and going back? And they said, because we want this planet to ascend, but humanity is starting to destroy the planet and destroy themselves. And we were getting into a darker energy. And to ascend, if you think about it, we live in a 3D reality. Well, this 3D reality can contain love and compassion and generosity and kindness, but it contains fear, self-doubt, anxiety, hurt, harm to others. So you've got your yin and yang energy just pulling all the time. So for this to change, humanity, each individual human needs to change their perspective and their way of thinking into a more positive framework, become healthier, look at what they're doing to the planet. And that is the starting stage of ascension, when each individual human recognizes that how they're living is incorrect, because they're living in a reality that's been created for centuries. And we are not, yes, the same, can be indoctrinated by the past. And a lot of us say we're born in a beautiful energy, a very open, high ascended energy, into a 3D reality. And we are then told, you will get sick in your life, you will die at some point, probably die through like cancer or some awful illness, you could die alone. And it's your reality set by how you're seeing every other person's life, how your grandma died, your mother dies, your aunt dies, your friends die. And you just see this reality developing. And from day one of that first breath, and it takes a lot for a human being to step out of this 3D reality way of existence, thinking, to change their perception. So how are you going to do that? How do you change your perception? Well, somewhere on your spiritual path, you're going to have what I call a light bulb moment. And these beautiful beings now come to us in incarnation, in the soul base, to help us with that spark, to bring us that spiritual awareness. Now, not every 7 billion humans on Earth, or more, there must be more now since I last looked up the number, will have that divine moment. We're all here working in different ways. So, for example, you might have come here to experience, say, postnatal depression as part of your learning in life. And there's going to be lots of other humans put in place for that experience. So some humans come here to help others in that, and others come here to learn, but they all learn from the experience, and all of that information goes back to that universal knowledge pot I talked about. So our ascension here on Earth is a challenge, because we've got to break years of, I wasn't really acknowledging my spiritual growth until about over 40 years of age. So I had 40 years on this planet in an existence which I thought was how we all lived. And then one day, and it was after I'd had postnatal depression and a near suicide, and so I went through a lot of mental health issues, I broke through the clouds and went through the other side and thought, there's something more happening here. There's a bigger picture. And as soon as I changed my way of thinking and my perception, I thought, and that's when it allowed my guides to come in and go, great, she's got that light bulb moment, let's get going. And they did, and that's how everything changed for me. So Ascension, and to me, Ascension has got to be in small steps. You said about, won't it be marvelous when we can live in that 5D reality of love and kindness and compassion, and we can do that in our physical form, we can do that in our physical body. We're not going to exactly leave this planet. We need to establish it in the physical form first on Earth, and part of that ascension will be recognizing how we're treating Mother Earth, how we're treating each other. And the change starts with every individual. And it's like, I don't know if you feel this sometimes, but and those listening might recognize this, and those that work, I do a lot of work every day putting messages out to try and help people, and you can get that moment every now and again. You feel you're this tiny little dot, and what difference am I making in 7 billion people? I've probably got 2,000 people following me. And my guides remind me every day, and they must be getting really fed up with this, that you are a ripple effect. So every positive thought you put out is a ripple. Every good deed you do is a ripple. Now, I'm going to take you back into religion here. So I've just been reminded of that these messages I'm giving you now, a lot of this sits within our religious texts on Earth, one being the Bible. Forgetting about the God and the Christ energy with this, if we go into the texts, these Bible textbooks, which have been triggered by the God energy, so people trying to understand these beautiful conscious beings that oversee the universe, the miracles that can happen when you connect with them. And the Christ energy is obviously from when Jesus Christ came to Earth to show humanity there was another way, a better way of being. Now, he was what I would call an avatar soul. So, and again, I've written about that, and he's actually mentioned in my latest book. Avatar souls are souls like leaders of Buddha, Krishna, Mary Teresa, Catholic faith, trying to get the names. These are avatar souls. These are souls that come to Earth to work tirelessly to put over a message. Now, they don't have any reward, and they're not seeking materialistic living. And this is what Jesus Christ was. He was here to give a message out to humanity from his messages and his disciples, which after his passing still went out into earth delivering his messages. And they had to be careful because they could be tracked down. Back in the Romans weren't keen on this at all. That it's still, his messages still rippled out. And over time, these were put into the Bible and these messages were developed. Now, the people who wrote these, are they stories? Yeah, I could call them stories or facts. These were channeled from these beautiful high light beings that work with us, the celestial guardians of earth. So the messages that are trying to give us now to help with our ascension has been laid out into the human textbooks for centuries.
Yeah.
But we just don't see it. So what we do in our 3D reality is we somehow, in the religious people that work in the light, what I call the light in their religion, and don't work in the fear of religion. Like, so the fear to me would be, if you don't do that, you'll go into hell, which I had as a kid. It's working in the light that you bring these spiritual messages out to humanity under the religious umbrella, because that is our 3D understanding. That is how we've created these religions on earth. When you have a spark of religion, which happened centuries ago for many of them, it's because somebody somewhere has recognized there's an energy beyond earth. There's a God energy, there's an overseer. And then when they recognize that, they start to have things happening to them they can't explain, and people might call them miracles. So how do you interpret that? They might have a vision of a light being with wispy energy. They've never seen anything like that in their lives. They then say, well, actually, I'm going to draw this. I'm going to put a human to it. And the wispy bits reminds me of bird wings. So they create an angel, the image of an angel in human form. So this is how they express this to me in this book of, in the 3D reality, we have to try and interpret what they're showing to us from a very high ascension state of being. Now, as we progress through this awakening on Earth and we move forward, the New Earth book takes you through 200 years based on, so how can I explain this? So based on our reality now, so this moment in time of me talking, everything that's going on with Earth, with the awakening, what people have gone through with the pandemic, also natural disasters are part of this. It's not just this virus. Every ripple effect of every change that's made is creating what they call a new Earth frequency. So you've got your 3D reality of those still living in that narrow perspective. And then we've got this widening perspective where people are starting to say, actually, I'm really starting to appreciate what I've got. I don't need all this money. I actually prefer to go for a walk in the country. I really appreciate my family. I'm going to make amends. Why haven't I talked to Uncle Johnny for years? Let's talk to him. And that's starting to break down that 3D barrier. And it's taking you up into the fourth ascension, into that next stage. And it's all to do with our mind. And then you start to feel better yourself, physically, mentally. And it's very key, the physical side of our human life, because in ascension, for the moment, in the 3D reality, we cause our pain, we cause our illnesses.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know this probably doesn't help people that have gone through cancer or seen people going through illness at the moment. But I know from the channeled book New Earth that our reality in 200 years, we will be self-healing, and we will be meditating in groups and communities, and it will be pyramid-shaped temples they show us, and we will have a completely different existence. Now, if you actually take some time to watch the good bits of the news now and again, like BBC One do, you'll notice like community farming is starting to become a little bit more progressive. They're not using pesticides anymore. They're starting the organic, and they're learning how to organically farm and bringing that into communities. And communities are starting to send mentally or physically ill people that are struggle to cope in life, to gardens where people work with them and help them with nature and Mother Earth. So this is coming off the back of all of this, and this is going to grow. And by the year 2030, it will become very part of our community life. You'll know somewhere near you where there's a farm which is community based, it's going to become part of the norm, which it isn't at the moment. And that's ascension. Now, it's not just physical ascension for ourselves. It's humanity ascending as a whole. We're starting to work as a one. We need to work as a unit. I'm pausing there in case you have a question.
Well, yeah, it's mind-blowing, really. So my first point is, I know you said we didn't have souls until a few million years ago. So we were put on Earth. Who did this?
Right, so how they channel it to me, and it's how it's been in my last 3 books, they call themselves the overseers.
Where do they come from?
It's almost like they're the consciousness of the universe, is the only way I can describe it to you.
Okay, and so it's really that God energy.
Yeah, so you could call it source, divine source.
Yeah.
And the God, and they call them, for our 3D reality, they call themselves the God energy.
Yeah, so it's the origin, the source.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And
so the source, so why did the source choose this planet?
Okay, they choose.
Why did they create this planet? Is it as an experiment?
Yes, it was. They frame it in the experiment word for our 3D reality to understand. So if you're scientific, you have to, an experiment is seeing all facets of what goes on in the test tube, etc. What causes it? Why did it happen? They question everything. So the planet naturally occurred through the universe breaking up and making the galaxies, yeah. And each galaxy has a nucleus, and they call it a nucleus sun. It has a nucleus, and out of that develops the planets, the rocks, and whatever else.
Yeah.
And then the planet was hot and volcanic, and it was not breathable, or as we understand as life for us, we wouldn't be able to live there. But believe it or not, over 6 billion years, I think it was 6 billion years ago, an ascended race actually came to the planet that was used to that type of environment and mined and all they needed to survive. And that's in mind. So, you know, we've had celestial beings here for quite a long time, and then they go and other things happen. Then Mars was also being developed by the overseers, so Mars and Earth, but Mars was older. That it progressed quicker than Earth did. And they got to a point then, and it took obviously a few millions or billions of years, that they actually then bring from other sources in the universe, from other established planets, the first signs of life. So they would have put into the ground life. And I'm not very scientific and I can't tell you what that is, but they would have brought life to develop, they then leave it to develop naturally. They're also dealing with possible asteroid hits, which bring a different bacteria. So asteroid carry bacteria. Now they don't miraculously suddenly develop Earth and it's all blue and beautiful, like the Bible perhaps states in 7 days or whatever. It wasn't like that.
Bible, maybe those people didn't really understand millions of years. So
that's right, yes.
Millions.
So, and again, it just slowly grew and progressed and was allowed to develop. Now, part of that development was eventually a human form did develop, very primitive. What we'd understand by human form is head, arms, legs, toes, fingers. Very primitive, not very intelligent. And then there was a point where they decided with the Lemurians and the Anunnaki to actually develop a human species, taking that base form and adding DNA into it. And so they developed a second humanoid species on Earth. And that was you know, that was years and years on. Again, I've written about that in the Celestial Guardians book. So many planets are created. Now, Mars, unfortunately, had quite a catastrophic event, which didn't. So, do you remember the dinosaur period where there was a massive asteroid hit Earth?
Mm.
Yeah, 3/4 of Earth was actually annihilated in that time period. Well, now Mars had a similar event, but Mars didn't come back from it. But with Earth, because there was still an atmosphere and still things going on, they let Earth regenerate. But with Mars, they decided to leave it. So, you know, you talk, I can't even comprehend the time periods with this.
So really, we then developed, they gave us souls, and so we've got souls.
Yeah, we got to a point where
we reincarnate forever.
Yeah.
Until we decide we don't want to reincarnate, is it?
So what happens is when we're talking about ascension here, when we ascend out of this 3D reality way of thinking, and we go and a lot of us, like you and me, are probably in the 4th reality now, where we know we can change and we're working on it and we're helping, we're doing like what you're doing now, bringing information, healing, whatever else. When we hit that 5th dimensional way of existence, which should be, you know, the karma will go, the sickness will go, we will be working for others as well as ourselves, helping the whole world. We will have to be at such a point where we can then, so you have a human essence and you have a soul. The human essence is the energy of your life, your mind, your memories, your existence. The soul is a separate energy. The soul is part of a higher self being that's living in that existence, gathering information, guiding you. So it's like a sat nav. So when you die, the essence goes up into the source with the soul, back to the higher self. The essence of your life goes back to source, God energy, and the higher self has the memories of that life. Now, some people say, well, when your soul goes back, you have to be healed. Yes, because when you go back to the higher self, the soul energy has all the information from the earth life. It actually doesn't want to carry all the negative energy with it and all the bad karma that came with it. So it works out what it needs, what it's learned, processes it, and carries on with its existence. And the essence of that human life goes to source. So when mediums connect, they're connecting with the essence of that being, because the soul has gone back to the higher self, but the soul always stays linked. So the higher self stays linked with that essence while that essence the higher self is existing. So there's
so you have a separation of the higher self and the soul and the physical essence, or the essence.
Yeah, the essence of the body physically goes back into earth and deteriorates. Yeah. The essence of that life. Yeah. So humans can live without a soul, and that essence will go back to the source and is never lost. The soul is a reflection of the higher self being that's choose to incarnate. So incarnation means coming in a physical energy into that body, staying linked to the higher self, where it monitors that life and sees it from a high perspective in a 3D reality.
So the higher self then is part of the origin?
So I call it your home source. So your higher self can be a physical being living on a 5-dimensional planet, or it can be what we call a high light conscious being that doesn't have what we call a physical form like you and me. It's a light conscious energy, and they exist in realities, what they like to call realms or dimensional existence.
Oh, so they are there somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
In a different dimension.
Yeah, but they're not the overseers. The overseers is like, So if you wanted to draw the universe, you've got the overseers up here, you've got your physical earth planets with physical beings, and you've got dimensional realms and existences that we can't see in our 3D reality. But once we go up into that 5D existence and you're talking about massive consciousness, telepathic communication. Now I'll throw this one at you: multi-dimensional transitional change. So when we hit that 3D existence, that 5D existence, sorry, on Earth, and most humans have had to have gone through that ascension transition, we can then, through mind control, telepathically disconnect from our physical body and travel to other points of the universe. And it's almost like we'll be seeing it and then coming back again. And a lot of us do this in our sleep. I know I do it. So going back to the soul again, when we hit that point in our lives of ascension where we are in this 5D way of existing, and we can telepathically communicate, telekinesis, or we can move things, you can start to manifest stuff, you can start to separate off into multi-transitional energy to go to other places. That's when we won't have the soul. We will pull out the incarnation program. But we then, as humans, will be able to join the incarnation program and experience the incarnation in other beings in the universe.
So how long would that take? How long would that take?
We're talking, if we carry on the path we're on and humanity can awaken and change, it's a possibility in 200 years.
We won't be here.
Yeah, but I've already been told I'm coming back. So
So you know what I want to ask you, when you die, for example, and you go to this the light, and some people say when you go through the light, then you will reincarnate. But if you don't, if you say I don't want to go back to Earth, can you still do that, or do you have?
Yeah, when you go back to your home source, your home world, you are a living conscious being or a physical high ascension being, and you will look at what you've gone through, the intelligence that's been collected, a bit like a detective series, will be assessed and put where it needs to be. And you will say, well, does it benefit Earth? Does it benefit myself whether I go back again? Now, if it's a case of you really come here to learn some things as well, and because remember, I think right at the beginning I said souls have different reasons for being here. Okay, so lots of them will be coming forward to help the spiritual movement and the awakening, but not all of them. There's over 7 billion souls on this planet. Some of them are coming here to help ascend their own growth, and they will be part of this system of where they might actually be. So there might be somebody that comes to cause harm to someone else, so they're part of somebody else's lesson, but they also learn from that themselves. And how do you imagine this is manipulated? How does this happen? How does it, so along a few months ago, I sat down with my guide John, and I asked him to say, I want you to show me this. What does it mean? And I went into a meditation, and I was shown my lifeline from where I am now, way off into the distance. So I said to him, okay, I can see this, and I could see this blackness, and I could see like a geometric energy grid, and there was lines flashing everywhere. So they took me to the point where I had chosen to, in my lifetime, to experience a difficult birth and severe postnatal depression. Now, they'd allowed 3 years in my timeline for this. And I went, okay, I get that. But I said it took 4 to 5 years. And they said, we know. Because what we did is when you set that mission to do that as part of your spiritual growth here on Earth to help with your ascension, because it was part of my spiritual lesson, we based it on going into this universal knowledge pot, looking at other people in similar circumstances of how long the physical body and mind dealt with it in a 3D reality of that process of depression, anxiety, and all the chemical balance of pregnancy. But because it took me 4 to 5 years, which they couldn't predict, and they also decided to chuck in a death of a father-in-law and a sick father at the same time, which I obviously decided to completely give myself a real bombshell of life. It's why it took longer. So I said, well, what happened to all those 2 years then, when everything was supposed to fall in place for my spiritual awakening? And they just showed it on this geometric grid, everything just shifted. I went, okay. And he said, and then when you came out of it, you had your spiritual awakening, didn't you? And I said, yes. And they said, well, we just had to wait a couple of years. And I said, but how did you do this? And he just said, it's simple. Source, the overseers, the God energy. It's way beyond anything we can comprehend in this 3D reality.
Gosh, yeah. But, you know, even now, we don't know how a computer works, how we're doing this now. You're not.
No, we're probably being monitored now, for all we know. We most likely are.
I don't know how they're doing all this stuff, and we, you know, but we just live in this 3D world, like you said, you know, because that's what we're used to. We've been taught to. But what I know, a lot of people are waking up. I mean, people that you wouldn't think so. You know, you think that they're really not. No, they don't read a lot, and they don't, you know, they don't mix with new age people, but they are waking up. So, and COVID has done this as well. So I think that's a plus side for COVID, because people are questioning things.
Oh, it's so obvious all around me. I'm seeing it in with my own children, you know, the reality.
Questioning everything, which is what we never did before. We never in the church. We never.
It's also part of the ascension process is to heal, and it's to question things. You're absolutely right. And it's to bring, you know, we're bringing forward people speaking out more. You know, even women walking home, rape victims, people that have suppressed sexual harassment for years. All of that is now coming out, and people being punished for it, because people were fearful because they weren't believed. But now they're saying, I am going to be believed. You see how the energy is changing?
It is definitely changing, definitely. You can see it in the birds, and I haven't seen many bees lately, but
no, the bees are low.
So really the last question maybe would be, how do we get on this path? Is it because you had done a lot of work in your previous lives, and so in this life, you know, you opened very quickly? And I just want to know, how should we then get to that point where you can channel? And when
you need to so you come here with missions set, and some of them is like what I described just now about, you know, mental illness. That also very positive things in my life. That's just one part, but out of that became a very positive spiritual awakening for me, because somehow the day I was going to kill myself, something stopped me, and it wasn't another human. It was a higher energy. So, but I didn't recognize that until about 10 years later, when I started on this spiritual path. If you start to get the urge to read books, look into UFOs, read about angels, watch programs, and you're not really understanding why, just allow it to happen. And health-wise, you know, if you're overweight and you're feeling down and you just feel like everything's sluggish, even mentally, it's really finding that strength from somewhere to change. Now, I'd say to you, you go to medical professionals, or you find a holistic healer to help you, because you need a support network. And eventually, as you start on this spiritual awakening, and it can be one simple change that starts you from anything. And once you start to value yourself and trust, and you get someone that can help you. So, you know, there's many holistic healers all around the world. I know there's, you know, even Newport, there's loads of us out there. And obviously it can involve finance, which can be a hindrance to people. But again, if you say to your guides, which are around you all the time, please help me with this, change my life, and you've got to really want it, they will help, because it's almost like they're waiting for you to ask. There's many a time I've said to my guys, why didn't you intervene? Why did you allow that to happen? They said, because you needed to learn it. And then you questioned, and then you said to us, please help me. And we did.
Well, you know, going back to Jesus, I mean, it is amazing what advice there is, you know, like ask, thou shalt be given. And how many people do ask, and you will be given.
Yes. And they say you have to recognize that you can ask, that there is something out there bigger than you, or not bigger, purer, love. Now, there is yin and yang in the universe, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I'm working in the light here, and I do actually touch on that in my books about the darkness and the light, but I like to teach in the light, so I don't really dwell on that too much. But yeah, there's just so much knowledge out there, and all I say to whoever's watching, trust what you're driven. So I've just been guided to get the Course in Miracles, which is a book about the God and Jesus Christ energy, and it actually covers what you're saying about the Bible, and I've never been tuned into any of this at all, because I'm believing in UFOs and aliens, but I'm recognizing that this God energy, which is my next book is about, is that they want to bring to us the messages that have been put in all religions, the spiritual messages, and how but it's also to find out how it's affected people, and why do religions turn to fear to get people to worship God, because there's no need. So it's, you know, it's it's such a big picture, Danielle. I don't even know where to. Probably better end now and let people do their own research and reading.
Yeah, this is it. I know it might be your timeline to do certain things.
Yes.
You can put a stop to it. You know.
Yes, you can. Yes.
So it doesn't mean just because you're destined, you know, you think, oh, I'm destined to be poor, doesn't mean
exactly.
Stay poor. So really, it's time for us to all wake up. So that's what we're doing.
Well, we can all live very comfortably in lovely homes under kindness, compassion, and unison. We don't have to have the poor on the streets and the rich in the big palaces. No, it's not. I'm not being communist here, because somebody said to me the other day, you sound a bit like a communist. And I said, well, I don't really know what a communist is, but I can understand where you're coming from. It's fairness for all, but you're still going to need your hierarchy. You're still going to need your leaders. And the key thing with Ascension on Earth is those leaders work in the light and work for the planet and work for the humans rather than self. So
yeah, and work, like you've been saying, with kindness.
Yeah, understanding, but there's still got to be authority while we're in this 3D, 4D reality. And even in the 5D reality, there's hierarchy in the universe. The overseers are the highest hierarchy, the God energy, and there's others under it.
Because there's so much I want to ask you is, where does this darkness, where does it come from?
All existence has good and bad and light, is yin and yang. I said to my celestial guardians, they hate to be called aliens. And I said to them, so what are aliens then? And they said they call aliens the beings out in the universe that won't see the light. So they're self-propelling, they're self-destructive. If they've got spaceship technology, they're going out and they're probably blundering planets, getting what they need. And they said we call those aliens because their behavior is alien to us.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
They come from a separate universe, and where the universe...
No, they're still existing in this universe. If you think our galaxy's got thousands and millions of planets and suns, somewhere in those planets are going to be ascended beings that are not working in the light. They're working what they call the darker energy, which is alien to our celestial beings that I work with, because some of these aliens do see the light. The Anakai, one of them, they saw the light, and they're part of the alliance with Earth now. So there's been times in Earth's history where the Atlantis experiment was one of them, where they infiltrated the Atlantis experiments.
What can we do on a daily basis, quickly, just to finish off?
I would say learn to get to know yourself, your human side, your mental side, your purpose in life, meditation. Try to find yourself a spiritual teacher or mentor that can help you link and understand the spiritual path, and help you grow. We're not talking about, it's just tiny changes that are going to change your life. And then again, that's got many facets and many. So I spiritual mentor, and what I do is they bring somebody to me. I have no preconceived ideas, and I allow my guys to guide me what they need for their path, which could be healing.
Just a single step every day.
Yes.
Something is self-discipline. I just read it because I know about self-discipline anyway. Most of us don't have self-discipline. It's that little step we need to do every day. So instead of shouting at someone or your kids,
we've got to stop blaming others. We've got to accept our lives and what they are up to this point. Heal and say, right, I'm changing this. Let's move, let's ascend, let's go for it.
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you ever so much. And I'll just stop recording. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just stop recording.